What is up, you guys? Duki Yonkos is here today to bring you my triple chapter review for Black Clover's chapter 179 through 181. Now, these three chapters was predominantly the fight between Finral, Yami, and Jack against Ratri, who's possessing Langris's body. And when it comes to the structure of this video, I'm just going to go into chronological order to talk from chapter 179 through 181. Finral's character development, I'm not going to really talk about it throughout each chapter. I'm mainly going to talk about it at the end of the fight in the first half of chapter 181 during that review segment. With that being said, let's just dive head first and start with chapter 179 and then move on from there. So first off, chapter 179 starts off with Mimosa's group, and basically with Mimosa's group, we see how they're combining their magic powers to basically separate the elves from the civilians and help the civilians evacuate the House of Vermilion. And when it came to one of the elves, he was completely able to bypass through Kirsch's magic as well as En's magic, who was causing some disturbance in the atmosphere by using his mushroom magic to send spores in the air, while Kirsch, he used his cherry blossom magic to flood the entire room and separate everyone. And Mimosa also had her vegetation map on, so like this dude was able to completely bypass through all of that. And basically, he was able to pinpoint them pretty easily from what it seems. So I'm thinking that this guy may have extremely high magic sensory skills to the point where, like, even if you cause some magical disturbance of some kind and try to mask or hide your presence, he could still find you if he's able to sense it even a little bit, maybe. Or it could just be his magic ability as well. We don't know. But this guy's name is Vival, and we essentially, when it comes to characterization, he's pretty much a nonchalant type of dude. He thinks what everybody's doing is pretty much futile because the Gravital Belt is incoming into the castle right now. Not only that, but we have the other members of Golden Dawn, who he says that are much more powerful than him. Mainly Ratri, who he was hyping up. And we transfer over to the House of Kira, where basically we see Ratri using Langris's spatial hand swipe, and he does it on Finral's father and the king, and Finral's father uses his spatial magic to counteract it, but was still overwhelmed because Ratri's spatial magic was still more powerful than his. From that point on, the king, he uses his magic, and yo, his magic was laughable. This dude has light magic, and as it was stated before, light and dark magic are extremely rare. They're rare elemental magics to achieve. And basically, his light magic, he just basically constructed a giant version of himself. Like, it was like, dude, are you serious? And he's like, bask in my power, feel my power, get on your knees and beg me for forgiveness, and so on. And Ratri just did like his the spatial hand swipe, and it was just like, yeah, that was some piss poor weak ass magic. And I think it was already stated that the king was pretty weak because, like, when it came to the citizens of the Clover Kingdom, some of the citizens, they couldn't really sense that much magic power from him at all, like when he first appeared. So again, like, that was just laughable. Like, Augustus, he's just like freaking laughable as hell. Ratri then tries to go in to, like, basically erase his legs, and Fine stops him, and she basically says something along the lines that if you keep hurting the people you love and making them suffer, then nobody will be happy. And Ratri, it seems like this triggered him, and he throws Fine to the ground and tells her to shut up and tries to kill her, but then Finral comes in and he saves her. From there, Yami and Jack, they show up not far behind from Finral, and Finral transferred them to knock out Ratri before he has a chance to even attack. But then Ratri's spatial magic activated on its own, which was like, what? Like, huh? Nani? Like, it just activated on its own, and it blew back Yami and Jack, and erased one of Jack's blades, actually, and actually put out Yami's cigarette, which I found was funny. From there, we see Yami and Jack get pretty hyped, and that is essentially where chapter 179 ended. From what we know about Yami and Jack, we already know that Yami does have his dimensional slash, and Jack, of course, who can match the magical properties of the opponent he's going against. For example, how he did against the elf who was using rock magic to defend himself while they were fighting at the castle gates. Basically, he wasn't able to cut through him at first, but then the second time around, he was actually able to cut right through him because he's able to match the magical properties and gain, I guess, the element essentially of that magic. And this is brought back up again in chapter 180 as the key to bypassing through Ratri's defense. Overall, I thought this chapter of Black Clover, it was a good chapter of Black Clover. We had some big story progression here, and we have like a time frame now of where we're at currently. And because the Gravito Belt is now in the royal capital of the kingdom, and it's closing in on the castle itself. And we also have the beginning of the match between Finral, Yami, Jack against Ratri. And I thought it was pretty cool, like with Ratri's ability to have like his spatial magic automatically activate on its own. The King's magic, I thought, again, it was still laughable, but whatever. So with that being said, that's pretty much it for my review for chapter 179 of Black Clover. Overall, again, I thought the chapter was a good chapter of Black Clover. I'm not thinking about it, maybe solid to good, but let's just move on from that to chapter 180. Now, for chapter 180, we basically start off with where we left off last chapter, and we have Finral transporting Fines, his father and stepmother away, but we do have some dialogue between them to where she tells Finral to come back safely, and Finral's like, yeah, I'll also come back with Langris as well. And I found it interesting that Fine didn't actually say come back with Langris safely as well, even though she's Langris's fiance. And this essentially signifies that Fine is much more concerned about Finral's well-being than she is Langris's, while Finral, he's mainly concerned about Langris. And he does have dialogue from his father, where his father's like, you're just a courier for the Black Bulls, you certainly can't handle Langris, especially the current state he's in right now. And Finral is like, look, it doesn't matter whether I'm the courier for Black Bulls or Langris is the vice captain of Golden Dawn. He's still my younger brother, and I still gotta save him. And his father was essentially at a loss for words at that moment. This kind of reinforces Finral's development as a character to where he's not really running away from his problems anymore, and he's facing them head on. Now, I'll go more into depth about that later on, once we hit chapter 181. But essentially, Yami then throws Finral's father through the Fallen Angels Gate, and then followed by his stepmother. And Finral was about to transport the king until Ratri counteracted his spatial magic with his own. And from there, Jack, he actually uses his slash magic Insane Ripping to attack Ratri, but it had no effect whatsoever because of Ratri's spatial defense, and it actually cuts through the walls behind the king and blasts the king right out of the castle. And Finral's like, be careful, but Jack, he actually inadvertently did this, where he blew out the walls and to allow the king to escape, because he was mainly more so focused on cutting through Ratri's defenses and on the match itself. Now, the king is on his own, essentially. And I'm going to bring this back up later on during my review for chapter 181. But anyways, from there, we have Ratri use Archangel's Volley, while Finral counters with Fallen Angel's Flapping Wings. But Finral can only counter half of them, and everybody else had to dodge. So Yami knows that he could cut through Ratri's defenses using his Dimensional Slash, and they need to make it quick too, because the match itself has to end in an instant because of how Ratri's able to use such high-level spells constantly with little to no effort. And he's relying on Jack to copy the magic properties as soon as possible, so that way they can both cut through the spatial defense, and then they can go in for the attack. From there, Jack does copy the magical properties, and basically we just go more into depth about his ability, which we already knew about and could interpret already. And he uses Death Sight, while Yami uses the Dimensional Slash to cut through Ratri's defenses, which took Ratri aback a bit. But then he uses Archangel's Volley to blast and blow back Jack and Yami. Finral, he keeps trying to defend, but then he gives up his defenses, and he gets blasted through his sides. And he transports Yami and Jack in front of Ratri, while Ratri goes in for a spatial hand swipe. And that's basically where the chapter ends. Overall, I think the chapter was a good chapter of Black Clover. When it came to the reinforcement of Finral's development as a character, him not running away from his problem, him just standing there, like, much more determined. He's not scared to face his brother head on now, and he's doing everything in his power to save him with the support of the Magic Knight captains, Yami and Jack, to help him out, and him, like, supporting them using his own spatial magic ability, even though he can't produce attack magic and he's not as strong as Ratri currently is. I thought that was just great for Finral's character in general. There was also the subplot with the king now that's been set up, where he's actually outside the castle now, and he's essentially by himself at this point in time. And there's also the accident chapter, which I thought was pretty good. So overall, that's pretty much it for chapter 180 of Black Clover. Let's move on to chapter 181. Now, when it comes to chapter 181, it's mainly broken down into two main parts. It's the conclusion between the fight between Finral, Yami, and Jack versus Ratri, and then we have Patry make it to the Gravito Belt and meet up with Raya and Drite, as well as Ekra, who are possessing Gosh and Mary. When it comes to the beginning of the chapter, we basically just start off where we left off last chapter, where Ratri was going in for the spatial swipe, and he was about to kill all three of them together, but Jack, he cuts through his spatial magic, and then Yami, he goes in to knock him out, but he failed. And from that point on, Ratri gets, like, OD pissed off, and it was mentioned later in the chapter that there was actually a side effect to the elves' reincarnation, because it's forbidden magic. And of course, we've already seen it before, where the elves themselves, they were pretty much essentially, once they got to a certain point, their mana was getting, like, much more sinister, vile, evil, and corrupted, and they were turning into demons, like we saw with that one plant elf user in Hodge Village. Not only that, but when we saw Luck, who was possessed by Rufel, he was becoming more corrupted and so on. And we see this with Ratri, but again, this is before Ratri could even start transforming. We see Ratri, he just gets, like, OD pissed, and then creates two giant spatial eraser orbs, and then starts destroying the inside of the castle. And from that point on, he starts saying that you humans are nothing but vile, ugly creatures, and you all should just disappear. You all don't understand anything about me, and so on. And from that point on, Finral is like, it's already over. And he's like, the way he is now, he's completely forgotten about him. So what Finral is actually referring to where he said the match is already over and he didn't even notice his magic, was that he actually created a small fallen angel's gate, and then he used Fallen Angel's flapping wing and blasted it through the gate, and then he transports Ratri, catching him off guard, and then literally just socks him in the face. And I know a lot of people are like, really? He just socked him in the face? Like, what the fuck? But you guys have to remember, and I think Tabayuki did this in a volume, or it was like just in like an interview or something, but basically Tabayuki came out and he revealed, like, when it comes to physical attributes, most of the Black Clover characters, and we've clearly seen this, most of the Black Clover characters, you have to use magic to reinforce their physical attributes, because they are physically just weak. The physically strongest characters in Black Clover are Yami, Asta, who's number 2, and Vet. And then you have other guys too following behind them when it comes to just physical strength. Most of the characters, they usually use magic to reinforce their physical features. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that for you guys. I'll try to find the actual like image, so that way I can link you guys to the image so you guys can view for yourself to Tabayuki explaining when it comes to the characters and their physical strengths and so on and so forth. I'll leave like a link in the description down below. Anyways, from that point on, we transition over to Langris, who's just in a void of darkness, similar to how Luck was when he was possessed by Rufel. And Langris, he actually sees Finral, and Finral was like, you know, you're just so good, you're too strong, and you're such a handful, little bro, but sorry for being late, you know I'm weak, I'm here. And Langris goes in to grab Finral's hand, and then we see Ratri passed out on the ground, and then we see Finral follow behind, and he passes out. and then Yami has a mage heal him while he restrains Ratri. When it comes to Finral's overall character, this completes this part of his entire character story arc that's been established before when it comes to the relationship with him and his brother. And from where we go from here, I want to see, like, essentially relationship develop, like a much better, healthier relationship develop throughout the series with Finral and his brother, and see how they interact from that point on. Not only that, but what's left of Finral's character essentially is his relationship and him confessing his feelings to Fines, and probably him like finally, confronting his parents and talking it out with them. And there could also be a subplot point with who his mother is and what that whole spiel is about, and like what happened to her essentially. Is she still alive? If she's dead, like why isn't she here? So there's still things to complete with Finral's character, and left to be touched upon. But I thought when it comes to this, Finral's development as a character, him finally just standing up, like not being scared, just facing his brother head on and supporting the Magic Knight captains, even though he himself is weak, he can't develop attack magic and so on and so forth. I thought it was great. Essentially, I thought Finral was going to gain like a magic power boost, like awaken a new spell similar to how Noelle did, but I'm surprised he actually didn't. And when it came to that punch, it did remind me kind of Naruto, where Naruto spent all of his chakra, and then basically the only thing he could do against Gaara, like during his match with Gaara, was just headbutt him to undo the Shikaku Sand Spirit. And that kind of reminded me of that, essentially. And I think it was in more so the aspect that it was just such a simplistic attack in such a dire situation to end it all that really reminded me of that scene from Naruto. And I just thought when it comes to just this entire development for Finral throughout the series that's been established throughout ever since the Royal Knights exam arc, I just thought it's just been great through and through. And I'm really looking forward to what Tabayuki will do with Finral's character from here on out. Now, moving on to the final half of the chapter, we have Patry arrive at the Gravito Belt, and he meets up with the elves possessing Gosh and his sister Mary, and their names are revealed to be Drite and Ekra. Then we have Raya show up, and after an exchange of dialogue, Patry asks how Lich is doing, and Raya basically explained that when it comes to Lich, he doesn't know if it's because of the reincarnation magic or if it's because that Lich is in an artificial body. And I kind of want to know, how did they create an artificial body for Lich in the first place? But essentially, Lich's memories hasn't fully returned to him, and he's actually asleep at the moment. So when it comes to Lich, initially I believe that he was intentionally helping Aster in the group, where he intentionally gave Aster the Clover Sword and made it seem like Aster and Yuno just knocked it out of his hands, and then he blasted them out of the Gravito Belts to allow them to escape. But that might not be the case now, especially since Patry revealed that there is actually a way to undo the side effect, which is actually corrupting the elves. And essentially, it's what most likely is turning them into demons. And the side effect is known as the Wicked Heart. And they need the final Magic Stone to undo the side effect, so that way they can be fully reincarnated. When it comes to Lich, I thought that he may have intentionally been helping them, but most likely that's not the case, because he's regaining his memories back. Not only that, but Lich is more so a special case than all the other elves, because he has an artificial body now, which I'm curious on how they were able to create an artificial body for him. Not only that, but when it came to him, he didn't get he died after he did the reincarnation magic, and he performed the other forbidden magic to turn into the demon god. It raises the question, like, what is Lich's full intentions? Like, is it just that he still wants revenge, he just doesn't have his memories fully back yet? Or, like, what is going on? Like, what is going on with Lich right now? Now, when it comes to the whole thing about the final Magic Stone, what threw me off was where Patry said it was located. And he literally says that the final Magic Stone is located inland within a pedestal inside of the castle. And we all know that Yuno, and Tabayuki even showed it this chapter, that it's in possession of Yuno. Yuno has it in his possession right now. This means that Patry has no idea that Yuno has the Magic Stone in his possession. And it brings up the question, all those years ago, who basically gave Yuno that Magic Stone when he was a baby? And this could also be hinting that Yuno has ties with the Kira family themselves, which means that Yuno may essentially be from the Kira family. This person who gave Yuno the Magic Stone, they were possibly a reincarnated elf or a reincarnated human as well. And they most likely had the full memories of them in their past lives. And so, this person, the only person I can think of is Tetsuya. And the reason why I say this is because Tetsuya, she was at the center of the reincarnation magic when Lich casted it. So that way she could be revived as well as the baby. And maybe, like, Tetsuya could possibly be the queen of the Clover Kingdom, thus giving her access to the Magic Stone, which is in the Clover Kingdom castle. And maybe she gave birth to Yuno, or, like, she knows somebody that gave birth to Yuno, or knew who Yuno was, and then gave the Magic Stone and left it with him, just in case anything were to happen, and so on. So there's a huge possibility there, but I think Tetsuya is going to be involved in some way, shape, or form to how the Magic Stone ended up with Yuno, and how Yuno, and most likely Aster as well, ended up in the village of Hodge. But I do think when it comes to Aster specifically, Tabayuki should really tread carefully on how he's going to execute it. I am looking forward to how he's going to execute it in general, but it could either make or break Aster's character, essentially, in the whole aspect of him being a nobody, him not being special at all, and so on and so forth. Because if it breaks that aspect, then that does fuck over Aster's character royally, in the aspect of him being an underdog. He's still an underdog in the aspect of he still was raised in poverty, and he does want to give the kingdom, like, its people, especially the people who live in the Forsaken area as well as in the Common area, better opportunity and better chance at life, and so on and so forth. Not just the royals. Honestly, I really want to see how Tabayuki deals with this, but it looks like this flashback is coming up very soon. Now, from that point on, we transition back to Yami and Jack, who sees the Gravito Belt, and they sense a lot of strong people in there, and they're about to go in and storm the Gravito Belt. The Black Bulls, they're most likely not that far behind, because right now they're most likely meeting up with Rad, Sally, and Voltos, and they're about to transport to the royal capital and join in. And so will Noel, Fuego Leon, Nozel, as well as Zora as well. So it seems like it's going to be an all-out freaking war now. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of chapters of Black Clover. I really am. So with that being said, that's pretty much it for this triple chapter review. For the rating for chapter 181, I thought this chapter was a great chapter of Black Clover. It was a great setup chapter. The biggest flashback in Black Clover, essentially, thus far in the series, is upon us, essentially, from what's been set up in this chapter. Not only that, but there's also the subplot with the king now being by himself, and there may be a confrontation between him and Patry, and there may be the big reveal, because I know a lot of people have been saying it, that the king may be Patry, William's biological father. There's a lot of things and a lot of mystery and setup that's about to unfold in the next couple of chapters of Black Clover, so I'm really looking forward to it. Again, the chapter for 181 I thought was a great chapter. 180 I thought was a good chapter, and 179 I thought was a solid and good chapter of Black Clover. Let me know what you guys' thoughts on the chapters are, and be sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Peace.